Square One DSM is an initiative of the Greater Des Moines Partnership that mentors, connects, and enhances the potential for success for entrepreneurs in Central Iowa.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. My name is Mike Caldwell. I'm an employee of the Greater Des Moines Partnership, and I run Square One DSM. Welcome to Startup Stories. Next, just a real quick announcement, a couple announcements. We have a Raising Capital seminar. We just announced this the other day. It was in the paper, I think, this morning. Settled for, I think, the 29th of September. It's with Brown Winnick Law, and we're looking for 30 entrepreneurs that want to learn about raising. Did I get that right? So it's 29th. Thank you. It's really intended for entrepreneurs, and we're going to do it a little differently. We've done some of these before, but we're going to do it a little different. Most of the speakers are going to be either fellow entrepreneurs who've raised capital or angel or VC investors who provide the capital. So there will be a little legal advice in there too, but it's going to be mostly about what are investors looking for today in central United States, not the Valley, not London, and what if your fellow entrepreneurs who've had success raising money one or many times, what can they provide you as advice? So again, registration's open. It's the 29th of September. We've got 30 seats available. We're preferencing them to the entrepreneurs. Others are welcome, but we're just going to tell you, we're looking for 30 entrepreneurs that are getting ready to or thinking about raising money. Coming up on the 22nd of September, we have another Startup Stories. Pretty interesting company. It's called iEmergent. Their product is called Mortgage Market Smart. It's a product for the banking industry, and this is a company that's not so much a startup as a conversion. It was started out as a research think tank, went to a service provider, and created a product. And in a nutshell, their product allows mortgage banks, mortgage lenders, to forecast future mortgage activity at the street level. So they can go down nationally, but they can go down at any street level in any city and give a very accurate forecast of what the lending activity will be in the future. And for placing bank offices, for placing their individuals that are basically in the sales position, and also for compliance with federal regulations around not discriminating and not having bad practices, it's a huge deal. And so the two people that are involved in that are going to be here in September. That should be a really interesting discussion, and I believe there might see some press about them very soon as well. But today, we have Carl and Tori Maerz brothers. I have known them both for a couple of years now. I think, Carl, I met you after I met Tori, because you're still overseas. So before we get into this too far, one of the really interesting things about these guys in Rocket Referrals is there was no grand idea. There really wasn't, oh my gosh, I got this great idea, I'm going to go build a startup. So maybe if you'd start with, where'd the idea come from? Well, why'd you start a company and where'd the idea come from?
Yeah, I think that's the question. I kind of have a little echo. Should I move up or something? I don't know. Okay. Am I good? Okay.
He's going to handle it.
All right, you got it. The interesting thing is we didn't, first we just decided to start a company. And to do that, we thought, okay, well, what are we going to do? And we thought, well, maybe instead of thinking about what we're going to do, we should think about who we're going to build something for. So instead of brainstorming ideas, we started brainstorming markets. Okay. And we thought, basically where we landed was, okay, we're in Des Moines. What's everybody think of in Des Moines? I mean, it's insurance, right? We hope, anyway. Plus my background, I had a lot of insurance connections. I knew a lot of people. And so we said, all right, well, let's just go talk to a bunch of insurance agents. It's honestly really easy to contact those folks because I could just open up the yellow pages and look at all of them.
Yellow pages?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, actually.
Yellowpages.com.
Yeah. Actually, the funny thing is I wrote some code to scrape data off of Yahoo, and I started calling people that way. But anyway, we start calling up people, and I would call them up and say, hey, my name's Tori, and I can't, honestly, I don't remember if I said I'm like thinking of starting a company or if I'm in school or made up something, I'm not sure. But I basically said, hey, I think you're really smart, and I want to talk to you because I heard that I can learn some things from you about how you run your company. Can I come in there and ask you some questions? And so we went into these guys and we started to ask them questions. How do you make money? How do you use technology? Who's your customers? Where do you get your customers from? Right. And what we found are, they didn't have really good answers to these questions. And, a lot of small independent insurance agencies that I was talking to, they're just out there selling insurance. And they didn't have the best idea of how to use technology to help grow their business. I spoke with a lot of people that were fantastic people and great agents, but they didn't have the know-how to leverage technology.
And it's funny because you say that they do some, but not other. I mean, it's like the social media side of things. Everybody will say, well, it's the new thing, but how do you figure all that out, right? That's hard when you have a full-time job doing something else.
They're busy worrying about processing this claim or that or whatever. They don't have developers and designers and people that know how to do this stuff because they're small businesses themselves. And so I remember sitting across the office of one guy, and I went back to a lot of these guys after I interviewed them and said, here's some things that you can do in your business to grow it and to, bring more customers in. And I remember sitting across from one guy telling him this, and he's like, I'm like, what's wrong? He's like, I just want to sell insurance. Right. So I'm like, okay. Then it kind of clicked for me. I'm like, all right, I think we can automate at least 13 of the things that I laid out for you. And if I did that and I charged you X, would you pay for it? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, well, write me a check.
Please, everybody remember that line, write me a check.
And so we actually got people to buy our product that didn't exist.
Right.
And I thought, if I can sell something that doesn't exist, then I think once it exists, I can sell it to more people. So that's kind of where Rocket Referrals began.
Well, the point was also to sell them an idea and then have them help develop the product itself to make sure that it was usable.
Yeah.
A lot of times,
it's market validation. People say, what's market validation? And it's a check.
Yeah, I mean,
seriously.
A lot of times people have a really great idea, they go out there and they try and sell it, and people, that's not exactly, you have to, what sells, and you find that out by working dynamic, go over through the process with the actual agent. That's what we did. But we had the idea that we wanted to start a business. I mean, it started there.
Yeah, it started, the two of you as brothers wanted to have a business together, which I could not have a business with my brothers. Yeah. I just wouldn't work. Yeah. So you've got to address that
Sometimes
part. Sometimes
I wonder.
I'd want to kill my brothers, just both of them. They want to kill me too, so it's equal. Yeah.
It's gotten, at the beginning, there was a little bit of that, but I think since then we've kind of smoothed things over and everything's going,
You guys divide and conquer pretty well too, though. I mean, you divide and conquer pretty well.
Well, yeah, see, originally what happened was you're working for a software company as well, and I was in Afghanistan at the time, and I was going to be getting out of the Army. He was going to be out of that business, and it was great timing for us to come together. Sure. So we had to find a way of saying, okay, I specialize in this, you specialize in this, and then, we had, they complemented very well our skills, so.
I mean, if you have someone that's really great at communicating, and someone who's really good at building software, don't you think you would build a company that built software to communicate with people?
It seems the logical conclusion.
Yeah.
So, but it's worked out as brothers. I mean, it's worked out for you guys.
Yeah.
And tell us about the financing of the business, and we'll get to kind of the growth thing, but tell us about how you finance this thing.
Out of our own pockets.
So you're a bootstrap.
We're a bootstrap. I mean, we saved a lot of money to start with. I don't think that it was, when Carl and I were 7, we said, hey, let's save up money so that we can start a company someday. We just were people who saved money. And that allowed us to, quit our jobs or to not have a job for a while. I quit my job and didn't take a check for several years. So it's tough to think about, yes, we spent a lot of our savings, but the money that we actually invested in the company, about $9,000 total between the two of us, just to get the things that we needed to build, what we have. So
$9,000 in your time?
Yeah, I think there's that's one of the best investments we ever made.
So far it looks pretty darn good.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons I asked you guys to come back, and you were here a couple of years ago with me, but one of the reasons I asked you to come back is you're really in the growth mode now. You're really not a startup anymore. I mean, we were talking about that on the radio the other night, but when I think about it, you're out hiring people and growing and cash flowing. And so tell us about 2016, because this has been kind of your breakout year.
So far it's been a fantastic year for us. And I would even say, even looking into late in 2015, right? Like the last 3 quarters have been great, because every month we're breaking the sales record that we set the prior month. July was close, and it's really fun because, I would just say interesting, I think, because when we have a month that isn't, like July was pretty close for us, we don't have a board that we need to answer to and say, oh, why didn't you hit your projections on that month? Instead, we can sit back and say, okay, July was still a good month. Why wasn't that as good as what we thought it was going to be, and what can we do? And, we just turn and we make
with a good board, that's actually the exact same discussion. Wow. You just don't have to be accountable to somebody else.
I just don't have to do it.
Yeah.
I'm more efficient.
So tell us more about the growth this year.
Yeah, so at the beginning of the year, we had 1 employee. We have 4 now. We have 2 postings out there now.
So you're hiring 2 more?
Yeah, sales and support and potentially marketing, if you know anybody.
And tell us the jobs you filled. What are the positions? Because the 2 of you did everything before, right? I mean, you 2 were it. So you've got 6 employees, 4, the 2 of you, and then 4 employees today.
Yeah, so, really where we started to see our growth start to explode is when we had more leads than what we could contact and get in front of people, right? So the way our sales process works is you demo our product, and then we show it to you, and that's kind of like the sales pitch. We call it a demo. We had demos backed up for 2 months, 2-3 months. And, the whole time, Carl and I are just kind of in go mode, and we're making sales and we're doing stuff. And then we look at the calendar, we're like, holy crap. We could sell all of these in like a month if we just had another sales guy. So we hired another salesperson, and then boom, we were hitting twice the sales, that we were. How
long did that take from when you hired the salesman to when the salesperson was?
3 weeks.
3 weeks.
Yeah.
It didn't take long to get them up to speed. Really.
Wow.
Yeah. But the guy who built the software trained him, right? So, we go in a conference room and we're like, okay, here's how it works. And plus Carl and I have been selling it. So not only we were able to train him and get him up to speed very quickly. Plus it was a good hire. I mean, he did exactly what we hired him to do.
He had sold before.
Hadn't sold software, but that didn't matter to us.
Selling is more of an art form than it is a technology.
Yeah. So then after getting that sales guy really helped us ramp up, and they were like, okay, whoa, now we've got a lot of customers we got to take care of. Mm-hmm. So now we hired support and account managing kind of positions as well. It's something that we're very careful about, is managing our operational efficiencies. We're a bootstrap company that every month we want to be in the green. We're never spending more than we make, because for us to innovate and to build, we have to be profitable to invest that money. That's everything that's green is money that we can use to invest in future development and other things. So we want to maximize that as much as possible. So a lot of tools and things that we build and training that we do are to reduce those expenses. I need to get an account manager that can manage 300 people, right? And to do that, I need to build software for her to, or him or whoever to be able to do that.
Which is one of the reasons we're able to, not have so many people, only 1 support rep right now, and, maintain, more accounts, is because the efficiencies that he's built into the software.
So you're specifically building tools for your support
We build
person.
a lot of internal tools, yeah, that integrate different products and things together that we use. I think if a customer called into us, they would think that we were probably a company 20 times the size that we are, just because we can still react to things very quickly, and every time they call, they're getting a person, and that kind of
So the
stuff.
stuff you built, did you use existing tools and bundle them together? Did you build from scratch?
Both.
Both?
Yeah.
Wow.
So, for example, our pipeline tool is Pipedrive, which I think is fantastic. And then we have other email tools, and then we have obviously our own tool that we use. And we kind of use Rocket Referrals as the hub of all of these things. So all of the data comes into our systems, and then that connects with the actual accounts that they are using. So, for example, we have reports that we can look at that say, okay, I've got 3 customers that haven't imported a file in the last 90 days. Let's get my account manager to call them up and see what the issue is. So she can focus on the things where there's issues and not have to spend a lot of time finding the issues.
A lot of that's also the usability of the software itself. If people have less questions because it's easy and intuitive, then they're going to have less support requests.
And that's great, but you're actively monitoring every customer to make sure they're actually using the system.
Yeah. And we've had customers that aren't using it and they continue to pay every month. And I think a lot of companies would be tempted to just let that happen. We don't let that happen. We call them up and we're like, hey, if you're not going to use it, stop paying us. Because we want people, like real users, using the system that are going to give us positive feedback.
There's another reason. If you decide someday you guys are done and you'd like to sell the company, you go through a good due diligence process, they're going to call a lot of your customers. And if they find out 30% of the customers don't use this product, you just devalued your company.
Absolutely.
Substantially.
Yeah.
It blows your numbers up because they're artificial, right? I mean,
Well, that's good to know.
No, it's serious. There's some guys here in the room that would sit there and go, yeah, you're right. I think one of them is sitting right over there. So sales, support, what else?
Developer, yeah. So
You're no longer the only developer in the place.
No, it's hard to get a developer in Des Moines.
It's very hard to get a developer anywhere in the United States.
Yeah, they're
And most of Europe and most of Asia.
And to get one that wants to work for a startup too, I think is even more difficult. But the neat thing about being who we are is we can do a lot of different things very quickly. Like, we don't have big fancy healthcare plans and stuff like that. But everybody has unlimited PTO. We treat people like adults. We have a gift card to the coffee shop downstairs that people can use and go get anything they want whenever they want. We take people on outings when we beat records, and all of our employees are like family, and we love them and we take care of them like they're family.
Last month's speaker also just put in unlimited PTO, and they also put in no office hours.
Yeah.
It's just all accountability to a schedule and a project plan, and it's paying off for them. So I can understand that.
Yeah.
So you've got, have you done 2 salespeople now? You said you have 4 already.
Yep, 2 salespeople, support
and
developer. Yep.
And you're still writing code.
I'm still writing a little bit of code. Yep.
So what did you learn from bootstrapping? I mean, you could have taken money. You actually talked about taking money. I mean, looking back now, how do you feel? I mean, obviously it worked out, but there's days I'm sure you wondered.
Well, we looked at, the really interesting thing is we compared some of the projections that we had that say, okay, let's say we got $1 million in investment. This is where we would be from projections. We were able to exceed a lot of those projections without any of that money. So that tells me the projections we had were bull crap. And
probably raising money too, it takes a lot of time and effort.
It takes a
ton
of time.
If we're focusing, we did that for a while. We went out and we tried to raise money. We were talking to angel investors, and it's a great process to go through. You learn a lot, but at the same time, you're not making sales. You're out there focusing on raising money. And so we made the decision that, let's shift our focus away from raising money and put it more into making sales and growing the business and helping the valuation anyway. So if you want to raise money later, it's worth more.
Funny thing is, when you don't want investors, they come after you like crazy. So
there's some truth to that. When you're not asking for money, people start wondering, why aren't you asking for money?
I think maybe if the next time you're trying to get somebody to find some investors, they need to have a big presentation that has no up there and just walk out.
So we start by saying we don't want your money. I'm not sure that's going to work really well.
I think 4 or 5 people would be interested and go chase them. I'm not sure.
Well, that'd be a fun theory to test.
Yeah, I think there's a lot. I would love to sit down with people who have taken VC money and just like say, talk about the differences between the two, because I think there's a lot of differences. There's a lot of struggles that we've gone through. I mean, 90% of the jeans I have don't fit. Because I don't have a lot of money to go out and buy that stuff, right? Every dollar that Carl and I make goes to food and rent. We look at that. Every dollar we don't spend on something for ourselves is investing in the company.
See, and investors would love you for that, because that's exactly what they want to hear. Because you're treating it like your money. I know. Well, and I think a lot of times people that take money, I mean, there are companies that's going to take millions and millions of dollars to scale. Right. There's no way around it. And I've worked with some of those where you need 10 or 20 million. It's the only way to do it. And there are others where it's like, they struggle to say, well, how? Because it's one of my favorite questions. Exactly what are you going to do with this money?
Right.
Why do you need? It's not, I need money. It's like, exactly what? And what will it yield? And that's...
I think, that was honestly the hardest part for us as we went through that whole investment thing, is because... I knew Carl and I had the ability to start a company and to solve any problem that came up to us. But I couldn't go to an investor and say, I'm not 100% sure how I'm going to use your money to grow this company, but I guarantee you I can turn that investment around. But they wouldn't listen to that. But because we haven't done this again, now the next time we come around, it's going to be like, well, here's the proof. Right. Look at what we did with $9,000. Imagine what I could do with $9 million. Right. So, it's just... I'm not saying that we'll never raise money, or that even with another venture we would never raise money, but we've learned a heck of a lot going through this. Now I can answer that question. What would you spend the money on?
Well, you learn a lot about the business itself too. When you don't take money, you have to focus on every aspect of it. You're pretty much involved in everything, from accounting to marketing to sales, everything. You have to do it. And when you have to do it, you understand what it takes. And when you do take money and you can delegate those away, you have a better understanding of where that money is going, how much it's going to cost, and how much runway you really need to achieve it.
So one of the areas, Carl, you really focus a lot on marketing and communications in the business. Tell me a little bit more about how you've marketed it.
Well, we don't have a big budget for marketing, so we did a lot of education and inbound marketing. I write a lot for magazines, for blog posts, etc. We have a whole educational platform called Launch Academy.
I want to hit on the magazine thing because I think it's genius. Carl actually did this when he worked for another company. What was it called?
Yeah, it's a German software company.
Software company that he had. I remember him talking to me about this. I think I might have been with principal or something then, but he comes up, he's like, hey, I'm going to write this article and send it to this magazine so they'll publish it, and then I'm going to promote our product. And I'm like, all right, that's cool. So he wrote this article, and then when when we started Rocket Referrals, we started to do the same thing. So he basically writes for industry magazines like Insurance Journal and Rough Notes and all of these things, and sends them free content that lays out the story of Rocket Referrals and our philosophy and what we do. And it's a really good story. And honestly, all of the content that you read in those magazines is extremely valuable, and people should think that way. It just so happens we have a software product that does it for you automatically.
Well, I want to hit on that because I think a lot of people worry about, somebody's going to take my idea, somebody's going to take my idea. I mean, what you ran into is people say, I'd love to do it, but I don't want to do it myself. Why don't you just do it for me and I'll pay you?
Right.
And it's not there's some secret sauce in your product, I know that, but at the end of the day, it's about being diligent about doing the process.
So, the interesting thing is, I think what makes a company isn't necessarily the software that they have, but it's the people that they have. It's how they service the customer. It's how you continually innovate. It's how efficient you are. It's all of those things that people are really buying. So
Carl, going back to marketing.
Sorry. No, that's fine. Well, what he was talking about with the articles is essentially what I do is I try and establish a need for them. So our product is different than anything else in the market right now, specifically for insurance agencies. So I tell them you need to focus on existing clients. You need to do this and this, but I don't do so with an advertisement. I write an educational article, send it in, it's free rather than spending $5,000 that you're going to pay on a magazine. They publish it, people start to develop in their mind, they have a need for it. Then at the bottom, where do I get this? So what do you know, we're the solution for that problem. So I do that, through magazines, blog posts. You put out, do things with organic SEO. There's a lot of ways that you can try and, do free marketing, really. I mean, it just takes writing to do it. You don't have to spend money on AdWords or banner ads and stuff that's really not as effective anyway.
You wrote a book too.
Yeah, a smaller one. I'm working on an actual one right now.
Yeah,
but
well, tell them about that, because it is a pretty cool way to market.
Yeah, I mean, we figured that, I write a lot of different content around referrals, relationships, and I kind of combined it all into a book, branded it as the Insurance Agent's Guide to Referrals, and then put it out there kind of as a marketing tool, but also have it on Amazon where people can buy it, and people do. And again, it just gives more credibility to what you do, and it's really not taking away from any extra time aside from taking blog posts and putting them together in a format. That
I was going to say, it's not unique content, it's content you're using in other places.
Yeah, you just make
what
it
you've learned.
Flow well together and brand it.
Being a published author is a big deal to a lot of people. I mean, it's not that hard to get a book on Amazon these days.
Nope.
You can do it yourself. You don't really even need any help. There's a book on how to do it out there.
Yeah.
So there's 1,000 books on how to write.
I just think it's really funny that people have paid us to advertise to them. I don't know. I kind of chuckle about that.
Yeah, it is. But at the same time, what you're doing is they read it and realize, I really do need to do that.
Yeah.
It's what they needed to make the purchase decision, was to read all that and go, it's a good idea.
That's kind of about the innovation with the product itself, but we're trying to innovate inside the insurance industry as well. And really, we're going to go broader than that as well. There's marketing automation. We're trying to develop a whole new niche in there, relationship-focused marketing. And writing about it and developing the philosophy helps you, get the scope of exactly what you're doing. You brand it, and as well as trying to have, convince other people this is what they need to do. So it's part of the innovation, I believe, is the idea and the concepts is, just the same as the software itself.
So you've identified insurance as a key niche. That's your key focus right now. Do you go deeper to insurance? Do you go outside of insurance? What's next for you guys?
Both. I think we're going to start by doing more things in the insurance itself, focused around their existing clients. We can do different types of communication. But eventually, this product will work for any service-related company. If you have existing clients, if you have relationships that you developed, you have a huge advantage over other providers that are more based on numbers. So we're going to kind of expand out as well from there. But I think we're going to focus right now on insurance for a while.
Makes sense.
There's still a lot of insurance market left. And the neat thing is, as you get deeper into that market, a lot of other people that are in that market pay attention to you and want to integrate with your product and things like that. So that allows you to get deeper in that market, but to have kind of like hooks in it. So your product becomes synonymous with that. And then I think that's like the ultimate goal for one market. And then we learn how to do that there. Then we kind of move over.
So last question for me, then I'll open it to the audience. Do you sell direct to everybody? Do you sell through the insurance network? How does your channel system work?
Yeah, a little bit of both. Primarily direct, and we want to continue to do that. It fits a lot in with our marketing strategy. We want to be the experts in this industry. We have 1 million people ask us to white label our product and things like that, but we're not selling the software, right? It's bigger than that, and it's different than that. And I think the direct strategy allows us to innovate and grow quicker and define who we are and who we want to be in the eyes of an agent who is our
And agents talk to each other, right?
And agents talk to each other.
So you're getting referrals from your agents.
Exactly. Yep. And what happens is it's kind of like a bottom-up strategy, because your agent will talk to their carriers, and they'll find the carriers that are interested in new technology. And then from there, then we can talk with them about how do we connect with all of the other agents. But we're talking like volume deals and things like that. But we don't use them to
You're not carrying their brand.
Right.
But at the same time, insurance is a huge industry, but when you're talking about independent insurance agents, they have a specific group of management systems that they use. They have a network that they're all familiar with. I mean, you see these people over and over. So you can develop relationships with leaders and organizations in this industry and kind of get a name for yourself. So we are going direct to the agents when we sell to them, but we're also developing relationships with networks, aggregators, and different groups that can kind of pass it down to their members, because they all talk. I mean, it's a big industry, but they're really close as well, you know.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. Questions from the audience?
We answered them all, hey.
Casey.
The carrier piece, are they helping you when they try to put the service out in their do some referral type scenarios, or is there incentive to like that?
Why would do the carriers help, and why would they help push this down through? It
depends on the carrier. If you cater basically to your independent agents, then they don't have as much of an incentive, because if they give this product, it's going to help the agent sell more in general, not specifically. It's going to benefit them as a whole. They're selling mainly their product, and they can guarantee more sales of that specific product. So, I mean, we've talked with carriers, but we've really shifted away more direct, although we keep that open to enterprise.
One thing that our product does is we collect a lot of data about how people perceive their agent, and that data is extremely valuable to people at a higher level to help identify who their best folks are and who their best distribution arms are, right? So there's also value in understanding that piece as well. So that's where we can, we can sell we want them to help sell our product to their agents, but there's also a product that we can sell the carrier that allows them access to, view and manage all of that stuff underneath. But that's more enterprise level discussions, and they're always all completely different.
Brian.
So for those that don't know, we're in the middle of this insurtech revolution. It's a $4 trillion industry. There's all sorts of cool stuff going on. You guys were insurtech before. Insurtech is cool. You can all throw that your way. Have you seen an uptick in interest just because of all the stuff going on?
I don't know what it's because, but I like to think it's because we really are great at marketing, man.
I will agree to that, but I'll just say the timing's brilliant. This is a great time to be doing what you're doing.
Oh, yeah. We probably got lucky. Yeah. That's my guess.
Yeah, but you're seeing it, whether it's your marketing, you are feeling it. There's no surge.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think so. I'm going to give Carl credit, though.
Well, I mean, there is a lot of interest right now in technology and insurance because, as you said earlier, I mean, I don't know if you said it here, but they're about 10 years behind a lot of them on tech. And so it's a really good place to disrupt and innovate. And I think that having things around here where people are focused on, especially in Des Moines, and bringing people around here has really been beneficial for us because people are looking here, people have their eyes open to new things in technology in this industry. So it's been good for us.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think it's kind of funny because I think about 8 or 10 years ago when the first online insurance exchanges started, it was kind of like when the first online car stuff started. The prediction of the demise of all insurance agents was like, they're all going to be gone in 5 years. Mm-hmm. There'll be no more insurance agents. They're going to be gone. And it turns out there's probably almost as many now.
Yeah, in fact, we don't see that market really changing much in size. It's really interesting because, yes, there's more people coming up that are buying insurance differently, but there's still people who want and need an agent. And those agents are looking for tools on how to compete and how to do it efficiently because they're getting pressure on price from their carriers to...
Yeah, they can't compete on price.
The premiums are changing, but the level of service that independent agents need to provide is not changing. So they need to be able to do it more efficiently. And we give them tools to do that. And we recognized that when we started to do our research initially in this market, right? That these things were changing. I think I say I'm lucky because I don't think we didn't make that happen. We just recognized the opportunity and target our presentations and things.
Well, I'm going to give you a little more credit because you didn't just go decide what the problem was. You went and asked.
Yeah.
I mean, you picked a bunch of people you could talk to. You asked them what their problems were, and that's. Yeah. I mean, honestly, it's some of the best startups come from asking questions.
It's really interesting because the president of the Big I, who's like the biggest insurance association in the country, he's telling agents, where everybody's going left, you need to go right. You need to think local and you need to think relationships, because that's what you're good at and that's how you're going to compete. And so that's what we tell agents. We give agents tools on how to build their, online local reputation, and how to communicate with their people in a personal way.
The way I like to think of it is you have your direct carriers, Geico, Progressive. They want you to get into that fight where you're marketing with AdWords and branding and traditional marketing, because they can't compete on the relationship level. So what they should instead be doing is saying, how can I leverage the local opportunities? Google gives them an advantage already with local SEO and relationships and existing network that they've already built trust with. Why not go that route, rather than getting caught up on the same playing field or battlefield as,
And I think most of us who go out and buy insurance products are start asking friends, where do you get your insurance? Do you know somebody you trust? If you're not just buying price, I think it's the first question, who do you trust?
Right.
And plus, if they're going on price alone, they're probably more of a non-standard person jumping around where you don't have that long-term value. And the cost acquisition for them as well, they're not going to overcome that.
And I think, it's just interesting, this conversation that we're having is about insurance. And that's why it's so important to really, we think, focus on a specific market, because we understand that market really well. We know how they make money, we know what their struggles are, and we can tell a story around that. If our company was trying to sell to everybody, then what would we be talking about up here, right?
No, you have to have some kind of focus.
Yeah.
Another question.
That was a good question, Brian.
Well, while you guys are thinking of another question, and please do, tell us about what a Net Promoter Score is, and in reference to your product. Specifically, what does that mean, and why do insurance guys and gals care?
When people ask, I kind of go in a little thing. I say it was developed in 2003 by a guy named Fred Reichheld. It's basically a one-question survey. I'm sure a lot of you have seen it before. It says, what's the likelihood that you'd recommend our product or service to a friend or a colleague? The reason you're seeing that so much right now is because, number one, it has such a high response rate. We get about 40 to 50% response rate. Number two, the answer to that question actually represents behavior that person is taking. Whereas customer satisfaction surveys, a lot of time they answer it, but it's not indicative of behavior that they take. So we use that as basically a way to get into, number one, identifying a profile of that client. If they're promoters, 9s and 10s, we know that we can target them for referrals. And as well as, because there's such a high open rate and we get them to take a little bit of action, we can use that to try and step along other actions, such as giving us a testimonial. Oh, by the way, will you share us? Okay, can you give us a review? If you ask everyone all these different calls to action at one time, they won't take it. But if you step them along a process with something like the NPS that has a high response rate, we can get them to take action.
So in essence, you're asking a question that filters out the people that aren't going to be likely to help you with what you really want.
That and identifies if there's problems in the agency that they need to. I mean, that's uncovering people, whereas otherwise they'd be in the background and could leave or talk negatively. You can take them, convert them into promoters, get you more referrals and retention. So there's a lot of ways that the NPS, and again, because so many people respond to it and people behave how they answer that question.
Right.
So those are the two big things about it.
How did you find out about that?
Research. Tori originally found it and we kind of built on it. The thing about the NPS is it's a really effective tool of giving you information, but if you don't do anything with that information, it's no good. So companies, a lot of the bigger corporations are pushing this internally. And they have, okay, my NPS is 58, who cares? I mean, what good is that? So unless you can use that to drive behavior for the clients or internally with your employees, there's really no purpose.
It's one of those numbers. It's the numbers, okay, but you really want to know the distribution. You want to know if I'm a 58, is it because I'm 35% 1
sure.
and 60% 9, or am I an even spread? Because those are two very different models.
Yeah.
We have this kind of, every time we build a design or build a feature into Rocket Referrals, we think about this philosophy, and that is, we don't believe that we should be putting fancy charts and graphs in front of people. Instead, we should be using that data on the back end to take action. That's the difference between our company and I think what's available out there today. I don't need to show, I collect click-through rates and read percentages and all that stuff for every email that we send. But you're not going to find a chart anywhere on our website that says 23% of the people that you sent this to clicked on it, because who really cares? Right. What we're going to do is find the 23% of the people that clicked on it and do something with it. And that's the automation that I'm talking about, and that's what makes our product different. And so we started to use NPS because we saw it as a way to solve a problem. We had to train our data set. We had to identify who our promoters were so that we can compare that with a profile of people. And now I can say, okay, wow, look, promoters are more likely to be promoters if they came from a referral, or if they had this or these different data sets. And now we can start to identify who promoters are before they even answer that question.
And that data that we're collecting from hundreds of thousands of clients from these insurance agents, we can then use. We look at it anonymously and build profiles of, okay, exactly what is this person? What can we predict that he's going to do off of this? And then identify bigger trends in the industry. This is why people are unhappy. This is why they are happy. And then use that as best practices to show that.
You published the first industry
He has a
report.
white paper.
But we haven't really put it out there yet
because it's really valuable.
Yeah,
There's a charge for it.
Yeah. So in fact, we looked at all of this data, and what's really interesting is we're comparing it to other research that's out there. And a lot of the research is done, for example, when someone decides to leave an insurance company, they ask why, but that's too late. We have a lot of data that says if you want to keep somebody, here's what you need to do before they leave, right? And that's huge.
Well, for example,
that's the enterprise stuff.
Most people will say they leave because of price, because they want to avoid conflict. They want to blame it on something else. Whereas if the value is there with the relationship, they wouldn't. And we can catch it before they leave because they're a detractor, and catch those comments beforehand to try and see behavior. Because most people, all these studies, they say, well, 58% leave because of price. That's the reason they give after they leave. You have to look before, because price is just an excuse, right? So little things like that in the data we can look at.
It reminds me of the exit interview when you're leaving the company. They say, okay, now that we've gotten rid of you, you've quit. Now tell us why you quit. It's like, yeah, right. I'm really going to give you the truth now.
Right, exactly.
Other questions?
When did you start the company? And how long before your first paying customer?
We had our first paying customer before we started the company. So 2012, I think it was like we had our first paying customer in February, and we were officially, we'd have to check with her.
February 13.
When did we create? When did we have enough money to hire you?
Yeah, but I think that's really important, because a lot of people kind of freak out at first and they say, somebody paid you before you did it. I know quite a few startups that went out and got 10 customers to say yes and write a check. Mm-hmm. Not just to favor the company, but in some cases to go to somebody like Matt and say, okay, Matt, here's why you would invest in me, is people are willing to pay before the problem's even solved. Right. It's a good way to tell a potential investor.
I also use those first paying customers as free office space.
And referrals.
Yeah, and referrals. So we had a founding member program that we created that we had some different benefits. And one of the benefits was I could work out of their office when I needed to.
Nice. Which also meant they got really good support.
Yeah, they were really close to the developer. Yeah. So.
Question. You guys are too quiet today.
We answered everything. I'm surprised. There it is.
Oh, come on, Brad. You had to be.
Do you have to do a demo for everybody, or is there a way for there to be a self-serve sign-up?
There's a self-serve sign-up process.
How does that split look?
Percentage-wise, it's really low. It's something, we have this really neat thing. You guys know what Rube Goldberg devices are, with like marbles fly down. So every time someone gets a sale on, they put it in the wall, and it goes through all this stuff and then goes in a tube. And every salesperson has their own color. And then I have one for system self-service sales. There's not enough red ones, and mine's red.
We built the program, to be, so agents can use it, and that's really our focus on development, is to make it great for them. The onboarding process is not as good, without, more of a manual process. So we're going to be building that.
We have, this is where I'm talking about getting our hooks into the insurance market. When I can integrate with more platforms, it makes that more possible. Mm-hmm. The problem is the insurance industry is really far behind, so they don't think about building software that integrates well. So our number one problem from day one has always been getting data into the system, getting that insurance agent's customer data there. And to do that, we have to walk people through it. And to do that, we have to build a relationship with them. And we have tools and things in place that can try and make it easier. But it's not an easy process in my mind. It's probably easier to the agent than what they thought of when they first signed up with their management system. But
well, it's challenging as well because we're a different product. If they had a management system moving from one to the other, the onboarding would be easier because they have an idea of what this is. They've seen it before, whereas we're completely. I mean, it's intuitive, but it's a different concept.
Our market does not buy software like that. They are used to longer, like talking to people kind of processes. So we know as we go into other markets that I want to pick one that's more self-service. But
I can understand why.
Yeah.
Two questions. First is, I have a comment. Thank you for your service.
Oh, thanks.
You started us and you spent some time in Afghanistan and beyond. Thank you for doing so. First question being, what were you doing in the Army? What were the decisions that kind of led up to you going into the Army? Second question for your brother, Corey, why did you decide to go in a different sector?
Well, for me, I was working for a German software company back in 2008, and it was when the recession came, and I got laid off the job, and I had this. I mean, really, what happened was I was I was in sales, and I was in an airport one day, and I saw a kid a guy next to me in an Army uniform, and I saw myself wearing a business uniform, and I was just going to Dallas to drop my business card off somewhere. I didn't have really any value in it, and I thought, I would rather be in that position than I am now anyway. And it kind of started the transition in my head that I wanted to do something more important or valuable, right? So I went back and I joined. I had the college degree, so I went as an officer. I did about 4 years. There's, about a year of that's training. I went to Afghanistan one time, and I realized, the Army's great and you learn a lot in there, but it's kind of, you box you in. I mean, there's not really a lot that you can do to achieve beyond a path that they give you. And if you want to be creative and you want to aspire to be something beyond with the framework that they put you in, it's not really the place for that. I got a lot out of it. I really enjoyed it, and I figured that it was time to get out. So I did. And at the same time, Tori was wanting to start a company. So it's pretty much like I felt like I gave back as much as I needed to. At the same time, I got a lot out of it. And I felt like it was time now to do something where I can, create my own path, I guess.
And so, what your question for me? Why didn't I join the Army? I have a funny story.
This ought to be good.
I actually remember a time when I was in high school, and what do they call those tests that they give you?
ASVAB.
ASVAB, thank you. I guess I aced the thing or something, and so I had like 4 different types of recruiters come to my house, and then I remember I joined the Air Force, or I didn't join. I was talking about joining the Air Force with a lot of them because I always wanted to fly a jet, And I literally had the pen in my hand and the recruiters in my house with my parents around me. And I don't know why, but I put it down. I didn't sign it. And I decided that I wanted to be a computer programmer instead. So I don't know. It's kind of interesting how that happened.
Life takes turns. Question. We've got time for a couple more. Yeah.
Yes.
Through the bootstrapping, through having your hands on every aspect of the business, any challenges in letting that go as you brought people on?
Oh, I was mentioning that before I came here is exactly. I mean, delegating those tasks away. I mean, right now I'm doing a lot of marketing. When we hire someone in marketing, I know it's going to be difficult for me to step back from the details of that. So yeah, I mean, definitely, I think it's beneficial to see all the different aspects of a business, but when you start delegating away, I mean, I didn't mind giving that away as much, In sales, I don't particularly like sales anyway. I'm more on the content marketing side. So, I mean, some things yes and some no. It just depends on what it is, but it's definitely something to think about when you bootstrap. But again, I think it's great though because you have an idea of everything moving in. So
I think the hardest part is, and I think most of my employees probably think I'm freaking crazy because I tell them something, 15 minutes, I'll come back and tell them something else. because the way that I work and the way that I process things is very iterative. I will do something, I will look at it, I won't like it, and then I'll change it. So I'll tell them to do something, I won't like it, and I'll tell them to change it. So that's been really difficult for me to do. So,
but at the same time, I mean, you give a lot of flexibility to our developer, you know, to allow him to take a project and run. And that's one of the things that attracts developers, I believe, to a startup, is having that flexibility and being part of a team where you can see something that you're building, and, you know, rather than just being like a cog in a machine.
Yeah, I can tell you as a programmer, my first job, I actually got to build something. I mean, it wasn't, oh, you're going to have this one little piece of a giant. I actually built a system for a customer, and that was pretty darn cool when you're 22, 23 years old.
Yeah.
And it's still cool.
Yep.
Yeah.
Can you talk about the pricing of your product? Like, what is it, and how did you come to decide to price it that way?
Well, because we had people paying us from the beginning, we kind of, and they were all paying something different, because I was trying to test what are people willing to pay continually on a long-term basis. So we kind of used what our pilot customers were paying us or what they felt comfortable with as the starting thing, which meant when we first started the product, we had 3 plans and 3 plans only. There was an $80 plan, a $150 plan, and a $350 plan.
Per month or per year?
Per month. And that included a certain number of contacts and that kind of thing in the system. And what we found is the people that were on our middle plan, after they hit some of those limits, were reluctant to go up to the bigger plan. And also, there wasn't enough distinguishing things between the 3 different plans other than just the size to sell one or the other, you know, to make it like, oh yeah, to see the value in them, right? So this is really cool, because back in, I think it was 2013, September 2013, we changed our pricing and we increased our price. But we went from an 80, a 150, and a 350 to an 80 and a 150 at the beginning. But we lowered the number of contacts in our middle plan and then allowed you to scale up. So the 350 plan, if you would scale up, would have ended up costing you like $400 now, as opposed to 350 before. And I think we ended up getting people on our 150 to upgrade more. And we lowered one of our biggest expenses is handwritten cards that we send out, and we reduced the number of handwritten cards that were available. And so that was more profitable for us. And that month, and we did sell a few plans, but we doubled our revenue.
Well,
and no one, not a single customer complained that we raised their prices because they didn't understand. So, yeah.
That's, you think about it for a minute. If you're
that was like genius, I thought. I mean,
smart. That's good.
We gave them more options to buy card packs as well.
You let them buy it the way they wanted to buy it.
We did, and we made it more valuable to them and more profitable for us, so it was a win-win.
I mean, getting pricing right is important, because it really is. And like he said, one small change can double your revenue.
Yeah.
So.
One last question.
I've got 2 actually.
All right.
First of all, being in an insurance town, does that help? Do you think that's helped you, or being around it, maybe it's part of what fostered the idea?
Definitely has helped us. I mean, that's one of the reasons initially we went in, because there were so many agents around here to talk to, so many carriers right next door. You know, organizations helping with startups around here. There's been a lot of things that are beneficial for me in Des Moines. I mean, the cost of living here is low, you know, everything.
But one other question, I'm sorry.
No, go.
I'll change.
Go for it.
How big an area do you serve now? I mean, you know, it would appear to me you've got a massive market.
Yeah, we're all over the country. All over the country. I think we're pretty evenly distributed, actually. We do more business outside of Des Moines and Iowa than we do inside. We even have customers in Canada, so that's cool.
Multinational.
Yeah.
Our marketing is pretty much, you know, because it's on Google and whatnot, people find us from all around. So there's no, because we're not going door to door, you know, Iowa's not any higher concentration.
Yeah, there's really no territory boundary in what you're doing.
Yeah.
You're not bounded by physical.
Other than the United States for the most part, and some
Yeah.
Canada.
Well, guys, thank you very much for coming. I really appreciate it. Join me in giving a hand.